Greetings, Earthlings. I wanted to finish a story I had meant to tell you, and the batteries cut out last time I tried to get through it. So, spaceships, Dealey, Plaza, John F. Kennedy. Page 6. The Zapruder film was the one thing that the Warren Commission had not expected. The 8mm home movie camera that Abraham Zapruder was recording the parade on was the piece of evidence that proved there was more than one shooter. Frame by frame, the Zapruder film shows that the time from the first shot to the last was only 5.6 seconds. The two most important frames of the film had been doctored. Frame 314 and frame 315 had been reversed, creating the image that Kennedy was hit in the rear of the head and that he was pushed forward. When the Warren Commission asked FBI head J. Edgar Hoover about the incident, he replied, an inadvertent printing error had occurred. These two frames, when shown correctly, show the president's head move back and to the left, indicating that the bullet had come from in front of him and to his right, the grassy knoll. The Zapruder film also shows that the second and third shots came one after the other, only 1.8 seconds apart. It is impossible to reload a Mannlicher Carcano rifle in that time. Digression. Again, the Zapruder film, by way of recording frame by frame, gives you the clock countdown of how many shots have to happen. So that one piece of evidence nullifies a Mannlicher Carcano shooting 3 times. You'd have to go through the bolt action 2 times to fire 3 shots, and that rifle couldn't even be fired successively without having to readjust the scope after every shot. The second shot, the magic bullet, had made a total of 7 wounds in both Kennedy and Connally. It is said that the bullet entered from the back of the president's neck and then exited the front of his neck. It then went towards Connally and entered at the right of his right armpit. The bullet moved through Connally's body, shattering his 5th rib and leaving from the right side of his chest. It then entered Connally's right wrist, shattering the radius bone. After coming out of the other side of his wrist, it entered his left thigh, from which it later fell out. According to the Warren report, the bullet was then found in almost perfect condition in a corridor in Parkland Hospital, apparently having fallen from a cot. It is said that Jack Ruby was seen in the halls of Parkland Hospital shortly before the magic bullet was found. We know from witness testimony that Dallas police officer J.D. Tippit was killed somewhere between 1:06 and 1:10. When Oswald got home, he quickly entered and left, but on his way out, he picked up his revolver. Oswald's housekeeper saw him outside the house standing by a bus bench at 104. The spot where J.D. Tippit was killed is about 1 mile from Oswald's house. Oswald would have had to go 1 mile in 2 to 6 minutes to kill Tippit, but the Warren Commission, who knew this, simply ignored the time anomaly. When the Dallas officials arrived, Officer J.M. Poe had marked his initials on the 4 shells found at the spot of the Tippit's murder. We know that Oswald was carrying a revolver because it had been confiscated from him after his arrest, but the 4 shells found by Poe had markings on them from an automatic weapon. After the autopsy of Tippit, the 4 bullets were sent to the FBI. They had concluded that 3 of the bullets were copper-coated Westerns and that the other was lead Remington. However, 2 of the shells that the FBI had received from the Dallas Police Department were manufactured by Western and the other 2 by Remington. These differences in bullets just didn't add up. It seems to me that the Dallas Homicide Division had fabricated evidence and replaced the 4 shells from the automatic with those fired from a revolver. Of course, when J.M. Poe had seen the shells against his initials were not there. Akilah Clemens, who witnessed Tippett's murder from her porch across the street, said she saw the 2 men kill Tippit. One was kind of short, kind of heavy. The second was tall and thin, wearing a white shirt and khakis. Dallas police told her not to talk or she would be silenced. In order for Oswald to be responsible for the crime, there would have to be situations prior to the assassination where Oswald had expressed some intention to kill the president. Oswald's wife, Marina, has said many times that Lee could not drive and that he expressed no interest in it. Not drive. Then he had no interest in it. But one afternoon in early 1963, a young man who identified himself as Lee Oswald had visited the downtown Lincoln Mercury dealership and expressed interest in driving and buying a new car. That salesman, Albert Bogard, showed him a red Mercury Comet. In a few minutes, they were cruising the freeways at 70 miles per hour. The man was also taking turns at high speeds. Bogart later told his boss he drove like a madman. After learning the price of the car, he made comments about going to Russia and buying a car there. Other witnesses met a man who identified himself as Lee Oswald and remember him standing 5 feet 7 inches, but we know from his draft card and Department of ID Defense that he's actually 5 feet 11. Only the truly innocent have to be as thoroughly set up as Lee Oswald obviously had been. Lee was also told by Guy Bannister to hand out free Play for Cuba leaflets, creating the idea that he was a communist. It seems to me that there was an imposter running around Dallas in early 1963, making appearances all over as Lee Oswald. 5 days prior to the assassination, there was a teletype message received at the FBI's New Orleans headquarters. Damn it. Teletype received at the FBI's New Orleans office warning about a possible assassination. William S. Walter had received a message saying the Bureau has identified that a militant revolutionary group may attempt to assassinate President Kennedy. This message has been very explicit, stating the time and place of the attempted assassination. However, the FBI did not inform anyone about the message, not even the Secret Service. The president's bodyguard was informed. Another man, Richard Case Nagel, while working with an unidentified government agency, had come across plans for the president's assassination in mid-1963. It became apparent in late August, early September, that this had become an exceedingly large operation. When he informed officials, he was sent to jail on charges unknown to him. Nagel talks about men such as David Ferry, Clay Bertrand, and Guy Bannister. Nagel also feels that Oswald was set up from the very beginning. An unidentified source had contacted Jim Garrison's office in 1963 with the knowledge that a man named Clay Bertrand had called up New Orleans attorney Dean Andrews and had talked about having Andrews represent Oswald in court. Garrison met with Andrews, who said that he did not even know the man. Many witnesses told Garrison that the man known as Bertrand was in fact Clay Shaw, director of the International Trade Mart in New Orleans. The most interesting witness, Perry Russo, remembers meeting with David Ferry, former Marine who was stationed with Oswald, at his apartment where the topic of discussion was the assassination of President Kennedy. Ferry introduced Russo to a Leon Oswald and Clay Bertrand. Russo had met with this group several more times later at Bertrand's house, where Ferry had talked about a triangulation of crossfire. One afternoon, Garrison had brought Clay Shaw into his office for questioning. Shaw denied ever knowing David Ferry and Lee Harvey Oswald. Later, there was a Dallas P.O. box listed in Shaw's phone book, and the same address was also found in Oswald's. There was also an interesting note written in Shaw's phone book. There was inscribed the words October and November, and next to this the word Dallas. Jim Garrison had talked to Ferry about the assassination. Ferry had also told Garrison that Shaw and Bertrand were the same person. Unfortunately, sometime later, Ferry was found dead in his apartment. There were also 2 typed suicide notes without a signature found by his body, although the autopsy had stated natural causes as the reason for his death. Later, when Shaw was arrested, police officer Aloysius Habegorst was filling out the booking information and asked Shaw of any aliases, and Shaw replied, Clay Bertrand. When Garrison took Shaw to trial, which finally started in 1969, the judge determined that Garrison had a strong case against Shaw, but in the end the jury found Clay Shaw not guilty, stating that he had no involvement in the assassination. The jury did say, however, that they no longer believed that Lee Harvey Oswald had killed the president and that there was another shooter, someone behind the grassy knoll. Let's stop there. I got to pay for a parking meter. Welcome back. Wow, I don't think I was even recording. So anyway, that's maybe good, because I was going into all kinds of bullshit This is the kill shot. Triangulation of crossfire. This comes from 17-year-old Ryan, the guy who is now 45 and who lived his whole life knowing at 17 that somebody killed the president of his country and took them on a totally different path. When Garrison took Shaw to trial, which finally started in 1969, the judge determined that Garrison had a strong case against Shaw, but in the end the jury found Clay Shaw not guilty, stating that he had no involvement in the assassination. The jury did say, however, that they no longer believed that Lee Harvey Oswald had killed the president and that there was another shooter, someone behind the grassy knoll. Jim Garrison's case against Shaw drew a lot of negative publicity. His offices and telephone lines were wiretapped. When he asked to have witnesses extradited, he received no help from the government, a problem he never encountered in the previous 6 years. A man who was a walk-on to Garrison's investigation, Bill Boxley, had been working for the government and had copied and stolen many files from his investigation. It's amazing. I actually write it here because I've wondered this. Who was that guy? And I haven't come across it, but I wrote it, Bill Boxley. This guy was CIA. This is one of these people. They infiltrate, always infiltrate. If you're a soloist, nobody infiltrates. And if you do things for just causes, the pathway opens up, perhaps. And you don't do it to profit. Because to solve the problem is the reward. Copied and stolen many of his files from his investigation. NBC had tried to bribe Russo into telling them that Garrison was making up the story. This is from James DiEugenio, Destiny Betrayed. Looks like page XIX, so that's like the preface, page 19. James DiEugenio was testifying to Congress in the last couple months. This guy's been on it from the beginning. Listen to what he has to say. He does not mislead. Getting on with it. A lot of key witnesses had also died mysteriously or disappeared. The government also fabricated a case which, if Garrison was found guilty on, he would have been removed from the DA's office. However, truth prevailed as Garrison proved the case wrong and was found not guilty on charges relating to payoffs for pinball gambling. They tried to put pinball gambling charges on the DA of New Orleans. Pinball gambling? What? These motherfuckers, man. These pieces of shit. And this is the world that still exists today. Because nobody cleaned up this fucking mess. And why are we here again? We're here again because spacecraft and UFOs are real. John F. Kennedy, where if somebody were standing in this position right at that time, or in front of that storm drain, and blocked that storm drain, and was standing here, and you didn't have that fucking Secret Service driver driving the car, you could have got through this. But it turns out you had to have these events happen. You had to have 9/11 happen. You had to have all this fucking shit happen. You had to have COVID happen. You had to have biological warfare happen. You had to have all this happen because we've never been told the real story, and we can't know the real story unless we have enough data points. And now we have enough data points. And now we need to end the game. We need to clean up the mess. Because starships are real. This is from Ridley Scott. Ridley fucking Scott. Okay? This is called the atheist arc in the show because the Mithraic sun worshippers had come across in their divine texts the plans for a trans-temporal spacecraft, and they were building it. And in the course of them building it, it was hijacked, of course, by the atheist group, and then they put this double cross sign on it. Okay? And that's a spoiler alert to episode 10 of Raised by Wolves, season 1 of 2 seasons. Should have been 5 seasons, there was only 2. Somebody get that show picked up. because this stuff is real, and John F. Kennedy was going to go, actually, he was going to drive this car. His car was going to the Trade Mart down this route, and that didn't happen because he was gonna explain some stuff, and he was gonna tell the Soviets, who were our chief antagonists at the time, supposedly. But as Connolly says, everything is a rich man's trick. So it's all for profit. Human bodies are nothing to these fucks. Okay? So it's time to wake up. Let me finish my story because I got to get going. I think I've said all I need to say. I got to get to... Dude, I'm going to... Let's finish this story. So Garrison was not guilty. Payoffs for pinball gambling. So who is responsible for Kennedy's death? Ooh, this is Ryan Perella, page 10. There are many theories. Many believe that the mafia is to blame, but it is clear to me that they could not have had the things such as the parade route changed the day of the assassination. The mob could not have had Kennedy's body moved from Parkland Hospital to the military hospital in Bethesda, Maryland. It is Texas law that a body cannot be moved until a civilian autopsy has been done. They also could not have had the president's car cleaned out and would not have received the total support from all government agencies to helping with the cover-up. Others believe that the Cubans and Fidel Castro were responsible. However, it would be stupid for Cuba to get rid of Kennedy, who would not authorize an invasion of Cuba, whereas the next president, Johnson, would have. Simple. I believe that the CIA was responsible for the killing. The CIA had been known for removing foreign leaders. That had been a problem. CIA was motivated to kill him because he had not supplied air cover for the Bay of Pigs invasion. He had also made a treaty with the Soviet Union and would have withdrawn all troops from Vietnam by late 1965. Now the entire CIA is not to blame, but certain high-ranking individuals who wanted Kennedy dead were. These rogue people could have had enough authority to give the orders and have them carried out. They did this with the support of Dallas Homicide, who fabricated evidence in the murder of J.D. Tippit, lost the German-made Mauser rifle, never checked out information about the Nash Rambler, concealed nitrate tests for 10 months, and allowed Jack Ruby to enter the back of the jail, which was guarded by Dallas police, and kill Oswald in front of 70 Dallas officials. Cover-up. Setup. Whitewash. The FBI, who did not inform anybody about the assassination information they received 5 days before the assassination, and bullying witnesses into saying things which were not true. The Secret Service, who washed out evidence of blood and bullets in the presidential limo and allowed numerous windows throughout Dallas to be opened, also by deciding to have the bubble top removed from the car, which could have saved the president's life. People like Guy Bannister and Clay Shaw, who made Oswald look like a communist and had him set up from the start. Set up. For fall guys, patsies, got to create the fall guy. Because you own the media's already got the story. You've already created the character, you have the physical evidence, this is what this is. The CIA had the power to change the parade route. Dallas Mayor Errol Cabell could have changed the parade route for any reason, and most importantly, the former director of the CIA, Charles Cabell, was part of the Warren Commission and could have had them write whatever they wanted as to the assassination. These are the points that Jim Garrison talked about in his book on the conspiracy to kill President John F. Kennedy. That the here's the bullet points. 12 pages. This changed my life. This told me that something was wrong in the world, okay? And that everybody goes around this business in the world, and they're not, something major happened that changed everything, and we're just like supposed to forget. And that ain't right. And that's not going to happen because we're not going to forget. Bullet points from Jim Garrison. A true hero. A role model for every human being. That the assassination could not have been the work of one man and was in fact the result of a conspiracy. That the members of the U.S. intelligence community were behind the conspiracy. That the assassination was done in order to change government policy. That the truth was covered up by an invisible government that is still operating in our country. and that this all equals a coup d'etat. In 1981, 80% of people interviewed believed that there was a conspiracy in the killing of President Kennedy. Today, the Justice Department will not conduct a thorough investigation into the most important political killing of our time. That's from Jim Garrison on page 296 on the Trail of the Assassinations. On the Trail of the Assassins. The most important political killing of our time. Totally changed the direction of the lives of every human being on this planet. I think that the young people of the United States should know that our country killed its own president and got away with it because no man but one would stand up and say something. And teacher says JG was not the only one. He's right. Quite a fine paper, although I think a bit too much Jim in it. I believe here's the bibliography. From these few sources and Oliver Stone's film and the willingness to go fucking dig and double check, to validate, to verify, to go on the scene, on site, to inspect the scene of the crime. Do that. Speak up for the world. Because the world needs positive change. And the most positive change can happen when we get rid of this disease, this parasitic, vampiric thing that's overtaken our world. Ugh. We just start asking better questions. Wow, my foot has no blood in it. Oh my God, it's numb. Okay. And that's that. You know, like maybe respond to an email too, you know, Dark Journalist. You know, it's like 3 months ago I wrote Dark Journalist, and you know what I get from that? I get the same as I get from everybody else. Fucking nothing. Get almost anywhere with a keyboard, with a clipboard and a high-vis vest. See that down there? Look. Hey, anybody that's got a they got these stupid cameras, but they're pretty good. They're perfect for this. 360 cameras. Somebody that's got a 360 camera, put that camera in those storm drains. Right there, man. Right there. Storm drain, storm drain. You see them connected right there? They're right in a line. They go through the whole thing. So that means they feed something. They go down south. They go, I don't know what direction that is. I think that's north, actually. But they go, I'm talking to topography, they go down. Because water flows down. Gravity. So down there, that way, that's probably where it feeds. Because the grassy knoll is one spot, but I don't think that's the only one. That wasn't even the one. I think they would have killed Harrelson and not let him fucking be in jail. Don't forget about Magmoda. So here's this shot. Again, now this shot Okay, the lens is where the knoll is. You probably have the barrel right there. Okay, that's 37 paces. The pace is this: 1, 2, 3. Oops. Got it? So 1 step. That's all. Find what's in that fucking storm drain.